Alright, Diablo 4 players, we just got some news that there's going to be some nerfs taking place, and on top of that, they're going to standardize the density, which basically comes down to all the new areas that we figure out right after this. There's going to be more likely more nerfs, so let's talk about it. Hop right into the official hotfix post that was on June 13th over here. It's posted on June 12th, but depending on your time zone, whatever. Nonetheless, I was playing last night, and these nerfs actually didn't hit, I think, until maybe 10 a.m. or something, because I was still streaming up until like 8 a.m., and we still had an insane amount of density over in the ruins of Eridu, which is the thing everyone's been farming. Basically, this area got nerfed, a few other areas got nerfed, and basically it comes down to whack-a-mole now with these dungeons. So, starting off, let's read the official post and let's talk about it, because there is kind of some buffs, and I say kind of because it's basically things were disabled and now they are re-enabled. So with the dungeons, they further made adjustments to the elite monster density in dungeons. So what does it really mean? Well, this is kind of a vague post. It just says that we're standardizing the density of elite monsters that spawn in dungeons to ensure that no particular dungeon is clearly more efficient to run through than others. So it just kind of says that they're standardizing, okay? Honestly, at the end of the day, what does that mean for us players that were farming certain areas? Like, I made a video on Runes of Eridu. This was like 100% one of the best farming spots in the entire game. And there's also champions. But for the most part, these areas are going to be essentially not good anymore, and they are going to be standardizing them, meaning that maybe that they have buffed other dungeons. I mean, that's what it should come down to, but what a lot of content creators are doing is this is the new best XP farm spot, and I will be testing a lot of these videos that I've seen, and we'll test it out tonight, and we'll show you guys where the best farm spot actually is. And then basically what's going to happen is they're going to standardize it, so then whatever new dungeon, let's say that this becomes the new best dungeon, right? They're going to standardize it, then they're nerfing it. So it really comes down to, I don't know how they're actually coding it in the game, but nonetheless, when there is a better area, it's going to be all standardized, so all of the elite monsters feel that they are going to be the same. What does this essentially come down to, though? Less XP and less legendary loot. If they standardize all the dungeons, then like, what's the point of running one dungeon over the other, right? If they're all going to be the same, then that kind of just makes it so you play any dungeon. And while some people will say, well, that's a good thing, right? I don't know. It's kind of up to you and how you want to do it, because maybe you have a very favorite dungeon to farm, and then now at this point, it's going to be the same as every other dungeon for the loot. But nonetheless, they've actually changed some other things in the game. These are two different legendary aspects. So they fixed an issue with the Edgemasters aspect, and it was improperly working with the Barbarian. So this was disabled. So this legendary aspect, if you equipped it, this is across all characters, by the way. If you're wondering what is the Edgemasters aspect, this is the item over here. So it's Edgemasters aspect. Your skills deal more damage according to how much resource that you had when you're using it, and you get maximum benefit when you have more resource, right? So it's really good for Inner Sight on Rogue, but a lot of classes use it. There's very many classes that had that in their item slot, and basically what it came down to is it was disabled. So if you had it equipped, it did nothing. But now it is re-enabled. This is a tweet by Fletcher. So it says that this re-enabled some aspects. So there's kind of a buff at the end of the day to this, and the buff is basically, if you had these equipped, they weren't working for the past few days, and now they will work. And then there's an issue with the aspect of Berserk Ripping, where you can get a insane amount of damage. That has actually been nerfed as well. So basically, these apply to specifically Barbarian, because there was like a shout with Whirlwind. These got nerfed. So there's a Barb nerf on top of the dungeon nerf. That was like the biggest change. There's also an issue with like the tier 3 quest was given. It doesn't really matter though, for the most part. So I'm curious to know how you guys feel about this, and I want to give you guys my thoughts, because people are like, dude, everything is getting nerfed, and that is true. And in the future, what's going to happen with this map is that if we find a good dungeon, they're just going to nerf it, and they're going to standardize it so everything becomes the same essentially, so it's on equal grounds. I think instead they really should have just looked at buffing the areas versus just nerfing the best ones. Why not just buff all the ones that people weren't running, and then leave the ones the same, so then people aren't upset? Because I've been looking at like forums and other different areas where people are commenting, and people are kind of upset about this. And I think in terms of game design, unless something is so broken that it like legitimately breaks the game, I think in the earlier stages, nerfing only makes people mad, whereas buffing the other things, different skills, or even dungeons, would just make people a little bit more happy overall, because I don't see people getting upset if another dungeon gets buffed versus their favorite dungeon getting a massive nerf, right? But that's my thoughts. You guys can let me know yours down below. How do you guys feel about all of these nerfs? Are you guys like, okay, that's fine? But it puts a huge advantage on any player that's trying to push for the level 100 hardcore. If they were able to play these dungeons before, if you didn't have early access, that puts you even further behind, because now you're not going to have as much time in these dungeons because they were nerfed and other people had access to it. So I was hoping that at least with Season 1 is when, like, the nerfs really happen for the game, but man, they are nerfing things like crazy, and I'll keep you guys up to date, and I will also make a video very soon on what's the best new dungeon. So if you want to see it, subscribe, turn the bell, and I'll show you guys where the best new dungeon is after this nerf. We're going to be doing a lot of testing tonight, and anyways, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.